Hey everyone, Alex here from Organian's Puzzle Box, and I'm excited to share something brand new with you. I've just released a project on Patreon called WorldForge Auto Landscape. Now, it's an incredibly powerful tool for Unreal Engine that simplifies creating stunning, dynamic landscapes. Now, with WorldForge Auto Landscape, you'll get a robust auto material featuring 6 blendable material layers. Now, this includes a slope-based blending for natural transitions between materials, plus specialized effects like puddles, flowing lava rivers with dynamic lava flow, and even fluvial erosion effects. And yes, it's fully Nanite supported. So every layer works seamlessly with displacement, ensuring top-notch performance in Unreal Engine 5.3, 5.4, 5.5. Now, this beta version is now available exclusively for my Patreon supporters, and I'll be rolling out updates to make it even better as development progresses. Now, if you're ready to take your landscapes to the next level, join me on Patreon and get access to the WorldForge Auto Landscape early. Thanks for your support, and let's dive into this exciting project together. So the WorldForge comes packed with all sorts of features, like these clusters of meshes that you can walk on and basically integrate with your landscape seamlessly because their textures blend together quite perfectly. And the same meshes can be found in the WorldForge Volcanic environment for this auto material. So here we have these meshes using virtual textures to blend with the environment quite nicely. So you can't really tell where the meshes start and where the actual landscape starts. Over here we have like a lava river that you're seeing. And this is going all the way across the map. And it's basically following a fluvial map that is specifically designed for this particular map. And as this sort of progresses down, we can actually follow it and find where it sort of like ends. In the meantime, we can notice that the environment itself is all fully Nanite displaced, and it runs quite well on Unreal Engine 5.5. This is where the lava main river is flowing. You can actually get this particular lava to flow quite rapidly in any direction, and also pretty much melt this particular part of it right here as well. So why don't we just do that? Let's just play with some of the configuration files on this particular map, just so we can see how that changes. So when we go over into our material instance in here, where we have the material itself, the material instance of the landscape, we can actually do a few things already. So first of all, we have settings for blending. We have settings for all the material layers, which is 6 of them. And we have loads of other settings for the river maps, for distant blending, for all sorts of global texture settings like tiling and UV breakup to sort of dissolve any particular repetition within the environment. And this is obviously very much catered, meant to be changed based on your preferences. So let's just start changing some settings in here as we go along and just see what sort of effects we can get. So for example, maybe we would like this lava to flow more. We can actually have a look into the settings for this. Some of the things in here, like the panner speed, is going to allow us to increase the lava ability to flow, to pan in certain directions. So you can see it over here, it's sort of like flowing in this direction, and then it's not really going past this point because we need to start playing around with the flow slope angle, sorry. So as you can see now, the lava flows more into this direction as it's melted the part where it was kind of getting stuck. We can obviously play around with more of these settings in here and just getting some different kind of effects. So for example, we could increase the slope angle maybe somewhere around 19 or something like that. And then we can have a look at changing some other settings like the cheap contrast. So let's just do the slope cheap contrast there like that. We can also have a look at dry noise constant. So if we just increase this number, you'll notice that it just creates these blockages within the lava and then adds more saturation in other areas like that. We can also have a look at the flow noise intensity. This is going to really spike up the shader of the lava as it sort of like flows, but you can also decrease it to the point where it just leaves these patches of lava here and there as well. Now, as you can see in here, we have multiple layers combining. So we have one layer on the slope with another extra layer on top of every edge of the slope and below every edge of the slope. And also it's combining with this sand and these rocks in here, which have kind of give the feeling of melting away. Over here on the top, we have many other, the same layers over and over again with some cracks of lava as well running around. So we've got the lava kind of flowing down here into this sort of like a river. And you can notice this across the map where the lava is connecting to multiple points where it can just like sort of flow through the main river. Over in here, we have a blueprint that controls landscape displacement. Now, this right now is not enabled, but you can actually go over into your plugins in here, and then you can have a look at enabling PCG. And you can see in here it says procedural generated framework, so you have to enable all of these. And then also in PCG, you want to also type in landscape, which will bring the landscape patch as well, which allows us to use that PCG to deform it. Now, this is going to come on by default, so we are going to have this enabled in the actual product that goes onto Patreon, so you will be able to displace the landscape. I mean, right now that patch displacement is working already, but because PCG is not enabled in this right now, it's not allowing for the spline to affect this and creating thus a river downstream. We have another feature in here which basically allows us to add puddles into our environment. So if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, we can now go to water puddles and press this button, which will add water puddles in our level. And as you can see in here, it's sort of like it can actually blend with the lava flow, so you will need to mask this out. One of the paint layers, the F paint layer, will remove the water puddles from wherever they are, but the best way to also remove them is to actually just sculpt the landscape and just add a bit of noise or smooth out this terrain, which will then remove the puddle the puddle formation. Now, what's really cool about this is that if you walk around the landscape, you will be able to notice the puddles themselves. By the way, I can see that my Nanite displacement has been disabled, so let me just go in here and make sure that I rebuild the data just so I can give that get that Nanite displacement back on track. This calculates pretty quickly, and then there you have it. So now if we play around in the level and walk around, you'll notice just how the puddles nicely blend with the rest of the environment, with the rock textures and with the sand textures as well. And I think this is a really seamless transition. Obviously, this can feed into creating that lava river into a water river instead. And the project itself does come with a water material as well. So if we go in here and we go to shapes and we add a plane, let's say, and we make this plane probably around a dimension of 10, let's say, right? Something like that. We can actually go into our folder in here, go to materials, and we have a M water master, but we can actually use the MI, the material instance. We're just going to drop that in there, and as you can see in here, we actually have a water plane, which can be changed depending on your preferences. So right now the normals are not properly set, but we can always go in here and play around with the UVs of that. With things like scale. So for example, a scale of 1 there, and maybe a scale of 5, something like that, which will then make the water look a lot more natural. And this is really cool because you can then scale up this particular plane, and this could be a water, as I said, like a water shader that's now on top of this. Now, obviously, it doesn't necessarily play very well with something like a volcanic environment, so you'll have to probably use this right. By the way, right now I'm walking on water because the plane itself doesn't have collisions disabled, but we can actually fix that by selecting the plane, going over to collisions, and just say I don't want any collisions, I want no collisions. And now if I walk with my character, I'm just going to be able to walk straight through it. So this is obviously very quickly just added a water layer on top of everything else. And, think about adding in here some steam so that wherever lava flows into water, it can just create that effect as well. Moving on, we have different other environments. We do have an environment that's all about snow instead of a volcanic landscape. So you can see just how versatile this is. So the snow environment is really neat as well. It allows us to have a lot of snow across in the environment and also on the cliffs themselves. So as you can see in here, we do have like an icy snow. So we have ice and snow as well. And then we have all these slopes over here where we can have like lumpy snow as well, like what you see over here. Now I'm playing this scene with the Atmos Forge, which also is bundled inside the World Forge. So I am able to actually go in here and actually select my Atmos Forge and play around with the lighting. So I'm just going to go and decrease the stratus coverage so that we can get more light coming through the clouds like that. And maybe something like that. Yeah, something like that is really good. So, just keep it in tone with the actual landscape of a sort of like a winter type of scene. So there's no snow or anything like that in the World Forge auto material, but in the actual release of a World Forge with an environment pack, there will be snow, there will be rain, there will be all sorts of effects like that. So as you can see here, this is quite neat as well. We have this sort of like snow dunes combined with icy snow as well, and it's really nice how it's sort of like performs across the board when, for example, we play around with the sunlight. Now, this might be a bit too intense, so we might want to decrease that a little bit. Now, obviously, because of how everything is very white here, we are getting quite a strong effect on the snow. But overall, I think it's performing really well. And we do have like this icy river as well around the scene. So this is, you can see it over here as we sort of approach it. And then obviously the slopes themselves here, like I've said to you, it's all combining very nicely and we are getting this really good texture on it and displacement, which performs really well. Obviously, I'm going to upload a lot of textures available in the project, in the World Forge, so that you're able to create the sort of the scene that you want. This is just one full of snow, but you can make ones where you got ground, dirt combined with snow, not just snow itself. And I'm also wanting to use the World Forge for a stylized environment, so I'm going to show you that as well. And here we have an example with a stylized world for the World Forge, and you can see it's a very large map, and it has these sort of like all sorts of combinations of cliff faces and sort of like grass and stone and meadows and things like that. So as we get closer to it now, we can actually play around and have a look. So it's all this is, like I said, is like a stylized version of this. You can actually enable cell bombing if you'd like for stylized textures to make them blend a lot better. But I think it's, I think it's doing quite well with what we've got set up right now. And now, generally, when you look at these sort of stylized environments, you may have issues where maybe the amount of, this UV here for this material is not that good, so we need to look at it. And in my case, we're blending always between material A and material B in order to do this blending. So we can have a look at doing some other type of like for example, maybe something like that. I can disable UV breakup just so I can get the original texture of this. So I think maybe something like that would be better. And 0.01, yeah, maybe something like that. And then you can have a look at the color tint as well. Maybe you need it to make a bit more bluish like the other one, and maybe a bit more dark or washed out or something like that. So this just gives a nice sort of like transition between multiple material layers. And as we have a look here closer, you'll notice that you're able to, like if you get too close, and this maybe the texture is going to look a little bit too wrong. So again, you want to go in here, maybe, decrease this AO power, maybe to like a 1, and then we'll have a look at the tiling close. So we might put that to a 0.1. Or, again, it's really up to you, because I think a 0.01 is fine. It's just, you want to have a look at UV breakup for a close version versus a further away version. So there's loads of settings in here to play with that you can find in these parameters. I'm gonna make more videos about how to use it, because I think it's gonna be such a massive topic in here. As you can see, the stylized version also has like a river map right embedded inside the material itself. So we've got a flow of river from there coming down all the way here. So this is good from you know, big distances. So it's able to give you a sort of a sense of scalability as well. But one thing that I would say is you can add direct, you know, splines of water and things like that to make it look even better. This is more for the long distance rather than the close distance. And I think again, the one of the main focal points here is that you know, again, if you play around with the settings, you can get some really cool sort of scenes. You know, like for example, something like that. So again, see, just by changing the lighting there, we had such a different scene now as opposed to what it was before. And this particular map, you know, you can just load up realistic textures if you'd like straight away and be able to use that. I'm trying to kind of go for like a look like World of Warcraft in here, so I'm still working on this and still developing it. But, you know, stay tuned as there'll be far more changes coming along for this material. Obviously, we have the Atmos Forge in the background as well running, which is a very high, you know, highly realistic clouds, but doesn't really blend very well with maybe a stylized version of this, but we can turn these clouds into stylized clouds as well quite easily. If you want to set up your own material on the landscape using the World Forge, this is quite straightforward. Let's say you have an empty landscape like this and you want to add the World Forge, then you'd go in the folder where you have World Forge Materials Landscape. These are the material instances that are already created, and this is the default material. Now, a lot of the defaults on the default material will be updated for release, but now since it's still in testing, I haven't yet finalized this. But what I would recommend is you for example, let's say you want to create like a desert type place, or maybe a volcano type environment, or even a winter one, then you have these templates, or you have the stylized template as well. So what you do in here, you'd Control D to duplicate this. And you can see now we have a new version of it, and I can actually place it in the slot of this particular landscape material, which will then add the material over here. Now, by default, it should already load the landscape layer, and this is, for example, it's loaded up the river map and everything like that as well. So what I want to do is I want to open this new material that we've just made, and I want to go to the river map, and I want to change it to another texture. So I'm just going to type in river. Actually, let me have a look, because this is a virtual texture. So over in here we do have another one. It says lava flow, so I should be able to use that. There we go. Now we have this particular lava flow, which I think is quite an interesting one. Let me just disable the clouds from the Atmos Forge. There we go. And with the material itself, we can look at playing around a little bit with the noises. I think we might be able to get a bit more, you know, better detail. Maybe do it like that, for example. And I think, yeah, something like that. Again, we do have quite a bit of repetition on some of these textures, and that means that we need to go for every layer in here down into the material A, B, and so on. So for example, material D, which is quite a prevalent material inside. So you can kind of see, if you change the color of this, you'll be able to kind of tell which is which. So D is this particular texture, and let me just revert that to what it was. But oh, for some reason it didn't work, so let me just do it this way. There we go. And then this other one being the material C, and you'll notice in here, again, if I change the color, you'll be able to tell quite easily. If we go over here where it says tiling, so we can have a look at doing maybe a 0.01, maybe even maybe 0.02. It really depends. You know, something like that, maybe 0.001. That gives us good enough tiling from far away. So obviously when you get close, the texture will change. And now we have in here for material D the same thing, where we can go and play around with the tiling. So I want it when it's far, 0.001 as well. So this makes the entire landscape look a lot better. And then we can, you know, further extend it. Like right now, it might be a bit too much, you know, might be a bit too big. So maybe 0.01 instead of 0.001. So you just kind of have to play around with the settings and get the right level, because it all depends from landscape size to landscape size. Everything is always going to be different, but you know, water puddles and stuff like that are already enabled. And you can notice when you get to the ground level, it actually looks quite good as opposed to your character, because this is the level that you're going to see it from the ground level, and obviously from further away the textures are quite bigger. But you will have to do it based on your preferences, and depending on if it's a game or if it's a cinematic or whatever it is, right? Everything in here is customizable. The material is massive. Actually, just for me to show you, the material itself is just very large, so there's a lot of stuff going on here. As you can see, there's a lot of material functions that we have. We have all sorts of slopes, all sorts of yeah, every material has got its own settings and custom material functions created for height alert, for water puddles, for rivers, and so on, and just the displacement itself. Everything in here is running on multiple cylinders, let's say. The instruction count is 347, but this can be lowered if you disable water puddles. It goes down to 270. So it's actually quite you know, an optimized shader as well. And yeah, that's you know, that's pretty much it. If you guys want to test out the World Forge, have a look on Patreon, and I will be releasing more updates. And soon, this particular system will be going on Fab as well, and it will be the platform on which I will be building a lot of environment asset packs. So the first one potentially might be the volcanic environment, and then moving on to an Icelandic one, and so on. Obviously, this material will keep getting updated, and hopefully on Epic will be releasing more updates for Nanite tessellation displacement, so that we can have richer and richer environments and landscapes as we go. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep creating.